Yesterday we spoke about the absolute rejection of the first ikr, of the first reality, is that all of existence is God. And that is the ikr that all the other 12 ikarim are being built from. That if there's no first ikr, then there's nothing. And we said the rejection of that was the door haflaga, the generation of the Migdal, those who built that tower that was led by Nimrod. And we said, what were they thinking? They're going to rebel against God. So we explained that what their thought was they made an ear and a Migdal, the city and the tower. They made it in Eretz Shinar, which was the place where all those who had passed away from the Mabul gathered. It was a giant cemetery. And they wanted to continue in a destructive path. And their idea was, let's unify everybody in the city, and then let's unify everybody around this one symbol. That was the tower. And the entire mission of the tower, the entire mission, Migdal also has a lashon of a degel, that flag that they were looking at, like Tosfos points out. That mission, that was the rally call, was the unified voice of the people will be reject God. And because God set up a world where there's free will, God will then agree with our, as long as it's unified, our unified position to now have a new vision for humanity of no God. And we said that the flaw in that was you can't have any unity unless you include the only unity, which is God. And therefore, it was inevitable that because the unity was never a true unity, you can't have a unity that only exists here in the physical world. It has to be a unity that includes the entire spiritual truth, which is that God is one, and we're all inside of God, and that God is Boiru Manig. Everything is coming from Hashem. Therefore, what Hashem did was He showed them that your unity is not a unity, and He started to break everybody up and scatter everybody. That was the beginning of the 70 languages and the miscommunication, to really show that there was never a real unity to begin with, because a unity that does not include God is not a unity. We'll see maybe if we're Zoicha today, that this goes into a halacha called Ksisas Michta Shiure, which there is a halacha that, let's say you want to take a lulav. When do we take a lulav, my friends? On Sukkos. Now, a lulav comes from a palm tree. What if you don't get it from a regular palm tree that you own, it's not stolen, but somebody has a booth at the side of the road and he says, these are palm trees, these are lulavs, that are from a very special place. These are all lulavs that were gathered from a festival of idol worship. And he sets up a little booth and he says, idol worshipping lulavs. Do you want one? Why not? It's a lulav. You need a lulav for Sukkos.
How much does it cost?
Let's say cheap. Nice and cheap. So there's a concept called an Asherah tree, which is a tree that was used for Avodah Zarah, for idol worship. If a person, now do you know what the halacha is of an item that was used for Avodah Zarah, for idol worship? The law is that has to be destroyed. It was used for idol worship, it has to be burned up. Now, it's not burned up yet, it just has to get burned up. So let's say you didn't know, you grabbed the lulav, and then you're like, bro, you check out this, where'd you get that? It looks beautiful. How much did it cost you? Don't worry, I got a good deal on that lulav. So you go to shake it. Are you yotzi? Did you fulfill the mitzvah of shaking a lulav on Sukkos? Why not? Of course you did not. Because you need to put on your spiritual halachic glasses right now. Because in Lumdis, we say, in the spiritual mechanics of the way the world runs, that lulav is as if it's already chopped up into little pieces. It has to be burned. It has a halachic status as being chopped up. Even though right now, physically it's not, but because the halacha says that something that was used for avodah zarah, for idol worship, has to be chopped up and burned, we already see it now as if it is chopped up. So too, Ramesh Shapiro explains, we can apply the star case of the door Haflaga and the Migdal Bavel, because these were people that came with a very, sadly, even though they came, like we mentioned, Berazah de Chachmasa, with a great cunning approach to their rebellion, but their entire rebellion was based on something which could never be a unified approach, because it rejected God, who is the unity of existence. They were already broken up to begin with. Their approach could never continue. It was as if now it was already splintered and it was already, there's a good word for this, fractured into tiny little pieces. And therefore it was inevitable that there would be now this fracturing of that approach, because they tried to make unity without including the truth of the only unity, the unity of the God, fragmented, but like even more particulated, maybe that's what I was thinking about. An absolute, just tiny shattering into particulate matter. And therefore it was inevitable that there was going to be a complete splintering of that approach. And it's interesting, in the world there's so much division now. And everyone's trying to rally around, we're going to unify. But any unity without including God in the unity will never be unity. Because the first and the ikar, some call it the ikar of all ikarim, or etzim, that would be a language of Chassidus, the etzim of the Yud Gimel ikarim, which is the existence of God, that's Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, the reality of that. And there's only one ikar, and ikar has to be the one thing. There can never be a unity outside of the one. It's only unity within one. That brings us to today. So the Zohar says an amazing thing. The Zohar says the following: Sheha'ir sherot solasais dor aflogihi, this city that the nation, and really was led by Nimrod, he was the king, of unifying all people to that city was in war with, spiritually, Ir Tzion, the city of Tzion, Yerushalayim, and the Migdal that they were building was the spiritual, like, how do you say, bizarro world, like the exact opposite, the arch nemesis, the exact opposite energetic force. What was the building, the Migdal? That was Keneged Beis HaMikdash. That Yerushalayim will be the city of unification, and the Beis HaMikdash will be the Migdal, like the Pasuk says, Ke Migdal David, that King David has a Migdal, and the Migdal, Zuhi Beis HaMikdash. So we see the same thing. We see a city of unifying, but in a way that could never be true unity, because it's cutting out God. Their entire approach was, we're going to unify to reject God, which will never be true unity. And to that city, that place of gathering people, that was Keneged, that was exact in polar opposite to Yerushalayim. And the Migdal, which would be the symbol of that point that they're rallying around, the concept, the kernel of their belief, which was rejection of God, would be Beis HaMikdash, which is a place of the connection of heaven and earth. The Beis HaMikdash will be the place that we will create unity of all existence with God. And that's why the Beis HaMikdash is called Ki Beisi Beis Tefila Yekare Lekol Ho'amim. That the Beis HaMikdash will be a place of worship for all the nations of the world, for humanity. It will be a place of unity for the entire of existence. And the message of what the Jew is here to bring to the world is that the unity that we're looking for is a unity of every part of existence. All humanity, all the laws that govern how we treat animals, how we treat this world, has to be an absolute oneness with the vision of the oneness of Hashem. Beis HaMikdash noyad liyos mokum akinus vis asfus. The whole purpose of the Beis HaMikdash is a place of unification. And here the Rambam, when he explains the halacha of building the Beis HaMikdash, he says, mitzvah saseh liyos boinim Beis HaMikdash, to build a bais l'Hashem, to build Hashem a home, which essentially is the exact opposite of the Migdal. The Migdal was the symbol of pushing Hashem away. The Beis HaMikdash is the symbol of bringing Hashem in. You're building a home where speak to Rabbi Dubov about how these things work, bring the infinite into the finite. That's why in the Beis HaMikdash, there were interesting things that were happening where the laws of finite existence started to bend a little bit. What were one of the examples of that? There were 10 constant miracles that were happening in the Beis HaMikdash. One of the things that always gets me is that in the Beis HaMikdash, where there were different sections, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies, so the length from one wall to the next was 20 amos. Okay? An amo is a cubit, a measurement. Inside the Beis HaMikdash, there was something. Who knows what was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim? The Aron. The Aron Abris, the Ark. Probably not the same one that Indiana Jones found or was looking for. I can't remember if he found it or not or whatever. But not that he found it.
But it's like a Jewish thing. They're trying to find that same one, no?
Well, yes.
That
well,
movie is about.
That Ark is not that one, I'm saying, but the Ark is the real thing.
Right.
Okay? And the Ark was inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. There were special things inside the Aron. There was a jar of man. There were the luchos.
Was or is?
Is. And the Ark was inside the Beis HaMikdash, inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now, we said the entire length of the Kodesh HaKadoshim was 20 amas. Now, the Ark had the beams that would allow the Levium to carry it. From the edge of the beam to the wall was 10 amos, and the edge of the other beam on the other side was 10 amos. Okay? So if you measured the beam from one end to the wall was 10 amos, and you measured the beam on the other end of the wall, it was 10 amos. It would be like, let's say this is the Ark. It's not. But let's say this was it. So from here to the wall was 10, and here to the wall is 10. And from the wall to the wall is 20. Right? Right? The math works, right? From here to the wall is 10, from here to the wall is 10, and then the entire space is 20. So where's the Ark? The answer is that in the Beis HaMikdash, we started to see finite reality shifting as we know it. Because the Beis HaMikdash was a place where the infinite is coming into this world. The whole purpose of the Beis HaMikdash is to make the communication from the infinite into the finite. We also describe it maybe more through analogy that the Beis HaMikdash is the place where heaven and earth kiss. There's like a meeting of heaven and earth. Kissing is a very intimate thing. Kissing is a symbol of unification. That we're allowing two to become one through this relationship. So the Beis HaMikdash was the exact opposite, and Yerushalayim was a place of gathering in order to speak about unity. And then the Beis HaMikdash was the place that was the symbol of the unity. The exact opposite of Migdal Bavel and the Migdal itself. And the Rambam, when he explains it, he says, the Beis HaMikdash is liyos makrivin boy hakarbanos v'choygeging elav, and to be with God. To be with God. The exact purpose is to create unity consciousness with all of the one essence of creation, which is God. This is the first Iker.
People are praying in there? Or it's
Oh yeah.
You're allowed to go? Because I know the Kohen's only allowed in certain rooms, right?
That's right.
But everybody else is like a regular shul?
Yeah, it is a shul.
That room where there's like crazy stuff happening, it's only the Kohen's or what?
So the Kohen Gadol only gets to go all the way in. Lifnai v'lifnim. Kohanim go in. There's certain places where Yisrael can go. There's certain places that are unique. There's different rules within it. The symbol of the Beis HaMikdash is one and one thing only, that humanity and God have a relationship. That we want to unify God with this world. That was the symbol. So much so, when people got to the Beis HaMikdash, you were kind of encountering unity consciousness, that you're kind of like independentness, you're like, gains as a independent thing, like separate from the one, started to become more fuzzy. So much so when a person would get there, they basically would just prostrate themselves. Pishu yadayim v'raglayim. I mean, like, we do a little bit of that on Yom Kippur. You know what I'm saying? On Yom Kippur, generally, when the time comes, so how does it usually go? Usually it goes like, you have like your tissue, you're like, you're like in yourself a lot, still like, just get some space here, and like getting ready, okay, oh yeah, okay. There's a tzaddik, don't do this. Sometimes we tell stories at tzaddikim, so when that moment came, the tzaddikim who were very tapped into this stuff, and they realized that on Yom Kippur, during those moments of the Shtach Havoya, you're actually there. I don't mean there, but you're there. So to the degree that you prepare for this, you're there. So the tzaddikim who were there was one tzaddik that he used to daven like on sort of an elevated bima area, and they knew that the Chassidim knew, like when the time for the Shtach Havoya was coming, they got like matched. The Rebbe was, he barely opened his eyes, for like the whole day. So when the time came, he was just going to so they were getting mattresses ready, because they had a feeling he was just going to go right off the bima. They were getting like matches. We don't know what's about to happen. And just sure enough, woo! And just like, okay, Baruch Hashem, we that was it. At that moment, there's just not a dissolving, but there's a returning to oneness, and you're aware of the oneness. This is something the Yeshiva speaks about a lot, is that the Arizal explains that when you say Yud Kei Vav Kei, we don't pronounce it that way. What you think about, like the Gemara says, Lo kishem shani nikra ani nichtav. Ani nichtav, I'm written be Yud Kei Vav Kei. Aval ani nikra be Aleph Daled Nun Yud. I'm written Yud Kei Vav Kei, but I'm spoken Adnas. But even though you say something, you meditate on Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Kohen Gadol could say it the way that it was. Now, there's a few things to think about when you say Yud Kei Vav Kei. There's something that Arizal points out, and the Rosh Yeshiva loves mentioning this, is that Yud Kei Vav Kei, we know, is Haya, Hoive, V'yeh. God was always. So always, which means as far back as you can go in your mind, He always was. Always. And at a certain point, your mind can't go any further, and He's before that. Always existed. Hoveh is here right now, the same God, and Yeh will be for eternity, which is a pretty good meditation to spend time with. You do it basically 500 times a day. The Arizal explained, which basically means He's outside of time. That's the idea. God created time. Like the Vilna Gaon says, Bereshis was the creation of time. So the Ari explains that Haya, Hoive, V'yeh is 3 periods of existence for humanity. Haya is God before the creation, or it's only God. Hoveh is the period we're in now, which is God with creation. The Hoveh period was set up that we would use our free will to choose to align with God. And by doing that, like the Ramchal says, we become the Bali Ashlemus, we become the masters of our perfection, just like God is the master of his perfection. Yiyeh is the time that we emerge back into the unity of God, but we're aware of it. So that was an experience of the Beis HaMikdash, is going back into the unity of God and being aware of it. The Beis HaMikdash is like a place from the world to come. The Beis HaMikdash is where you go into unity consciousness, but you're aware of your existence within the one. There is a famous Rebbetzin Gottlieb. She was Rebbetzin Heller. She's a Baki in Kol HaTorah Kula. The Rosh Yeshiva said that she learned Kol Kisvei Maral when she was nursing her kids. And Rav Kellerman, somebody who I'm in a Vad with, so he said that there was one time that he was speaking to the Rebbetzin, and he said that the idea of the world to come is that you're there. And she brought a Zoyar that said it's like a drop of water going into an ocean. So he said that I have Makairis that indicate that, a drop of water in the ocean seems to lose identity. And he was indicating that there's a you in the world to come. So they sent it to one of the biggest people who understand Tanya in the generation. And they got a letter back from this person. And the letter was 2 words, like Reb Chaim Kanievsky would write. And the letter said, "You're right." That the world to come is both like a drop of water going back into the ocean, an absolute emerging into the oneness, but you being aware of it. By the way, the part that allows you to be aware of it, i.e. some existence, we're taught, is the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs are called your chalukah de rabbanon. The mitzvahs allow you to have some type of a drip, whatever you call it, some type of a chalukah, some type of a shield or pod that you're going to be in as you're journeying into the infinite. And the Torah that you have is your mozain. That's going to be what you're going to experience. But the awareness of it will be through the mitzvahs. So the Beis HaMikdash was like that experience, an absolute place of unity consciousness for humanity. So the Beis HaMikdash is an exact opposite mission of the Migdal Bavel, was to create unity within the truth of the unity that could never be separate from God. Yes,
Zach. Do you already experience that? Or?
They do, but when the world to come, it's going to be a whole different thing. It says about the world to come, Ein lo yirasa elokim zulasecha, that none has seen how good it will be. Not even all the greatest prophets, not even Moshe Rabbeinu. Nobody saw what the world to come is. And all the prophecies of all the blessing and the goodness and the peace for the whole world was only speaking about the times of Mashiach. But the world to come, that is Ayin lo yirasa elokim zulasecha. The beauty and the unity of what's coming that will be something that we will experience, Mitzvah Shem, all of us, in the most amazing, 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 amazing way. We have tastes of it on Shabbos. Shabbos is called Me'ein Olam Haba. The Beis HaMikdash is like Shabbos. We have special tastes of these things, but the full unleashed experience of it is in the world to come. So today, what did we see? We see that the Beis HaMikdash is like the exact opposite. It's the Migdal David. It's the Ir Tzion. It's the place of unity in order to unify around Beis HaMikdash. And the Beis HaMikdash had a single focus, which is to bring God into this world and make that connection between heaven and earth, that we stop making a separation and that we could unify with absolute unification. We should be Zoicha, my dear friends, to see the Beis HaMikdash very soon, to see b'siyat d'shmaya tshuva me'ava elul ani l'doidi. If we come back, we could be sure v'doidi li with Mashiach tzidkeinu b'mherav yameinu. Amen.
Amen.
Have a wonderful day, my friends. A couple more shiurim on the first Yesod, and then we're going to move on to the second Iker. Have a wonderful day.